Today we're going over the new Emblem banner for July 2026 in Fire Emblem Heroes. We'll go over the new unit, plus discuss the 11 other units on the banner briefly. Seems like the recent Forging Bonds was a teaser because this month's new Emblem hero is actually Leif. The last of the main emblems from Engage is finally here. Emblem Leif is going to be an axe infantry unit, but he does bring his adaptable weapon switching mechanic, as we will see. Now for stats, Leif appears to have 40 HP, 46 attack, 49 speed, 39 defense, and 30 res. Pretty typical speed infantry stats. For old skills, or well, recently released skills, Leif has Counter, Dull, and Thunder Spectre. Leif will always be able to counter back, and he's got extended movement with Kanto to engage as well. Leif's weapon is Sage Lord's Axe. It comes with Bulwark to protect his back line, and Leif buffs allies within 3 rows or columns. Leif will get plus 15 stats in combat, while his allies get plus 5. Everyone gets full tempo effects, and then Leif basically has Archrival's cooldown perks, but as a support aura. Before Leif or his allies attack, they get instant cooldown equal to Y and inflict plus Y cooldown on the foe at the same time. If Leif or his team have weapon triangle advantage, you get minus instant cooldown and inflict plus 2 cooldown on the foe. Since Leif is a nice guy for all other matchups, you still get minus 1 cooldown and inflict plus 1 cooldown on the foe. Now the only difference from the real archrival is that Leif only uncharges the foe's offensive specials. He will not uncharge miracle or defensive specials. Continuing, Leif will have Sling and Distant Counter, he deals 25 true damage per hit, and he gets 15 Excel type flat DR. As mentioned, Leif's adaptable skill is going to be in his kit, so naturally he has a weapon triangle focused effect, which is basically archrival. He will also combine this with tempo, and Leif has a skill with guard, so he would try to deny enemy special charging. At the same time, Leif will constantly charge his own special, and he gets instant cooldown from his weapon too. With Distant Counter and Bulwark, Leif is going to be another mixed phase all-arounder. To go on the offensive, he has brought his Lightbrand style, which is a 2-space range attack. Leif will also decrease the speed roll for doubling by 10 for himself. Last, since Lightbrand is a magical sword, Leif gets adaptive damage. Nothing too fancy, but Emblem Leif's entire gimmick is always being prepared with the right weapon for the job. That includes having some magic for those high defense foes. Now to bring more firepower, Leif's got his Quadruple Hit special, which is fairly accurate. This 5 cooldown special scales off 100% speed. It has the usual 40% DR for all hits taken, and last, Leif gets Brave Hits. For support effects, at start of either phase, Leif will grant Truly Incited for stats, and no follow-up to allies within 2 spaces. The next part of the skill is all for Leif, and it's his weapon switching gimmick. If the foe initiates combat, trigger the following when determining weapon triangle. If the foe is red, Leif is counted as a blue unit. If the foe is green, Leif is counted as a red unit. If the foe is colorless, well, Leif just gets the Raven Tempo effect, aka he gets weapon triangle advantage against them too. This adaptable effect can trigger 2 times per turn if the foe attacks within 3 spaces. If the foe uses the super long range styles, then they can trigger any number of times. This skill will not affect other skills that trigger based on attribute, which are things like feud skills that only look to see if you're facing a red foe, that technically has nothing to do with the weapon triangle. Now, the last effect is that Leif will disable any triangle adept effects on himself or the enemy. Sorry, you can't abuse the 40% attack multiplier, as fun as that would be. So to summarize, Leif will get Brave Hits, a 100% speed scaling 5 cooldown special, and on enemy phase, he always gets weapon triangle advantage. This means he will activate his archrival cooldown perks on his weapon. For his Emblem Ring effect, Leif will provide the usual extra true damage on special procs. This ring will provide a similar weapon triangle advantage for the user, but there's a big difference from Leif's version. You will notice that the ring only grants weapon triangle advantage if the user is actually in a bad matchup. For example, if the foe is red, your ring wearer must be green. Only then will they get counted as a blue unit. In Leif's case, he's just gaining weapon triangle advantage for literally every single matchup. For the ring, the user can only reverse the weapon triangle matchup. Because of this difference, there is no interaction with colorless foes, and as such, Leif's ring is useless for colorless units. This version of the effect also only triggers once per turn with normal attack ranges. However, I'm going to assume it only counts the one-time use if you actually end up reversing a matchup. Hopefully that is true, because wasting the effect in a neutral matchup seems kinda dumb. Now I guess the question is reversing a bad matchup 1 time per enemy phase worth it? You would assume this ring would be great for archrival users, maybe the new edge specials, and perhaps trying to fight units like Boulder, who has weapon triangle gimmicks. Maybe they'll introduce more weapon triangle related skills. On that note, Leif has brought over Arm Shield 4. If the foe initiates or the user has above 25% HP, you get plus 10 attack, speed, and defense, you neutralize stat debuffs, you inflict guard on the foe, and you're going to get true damage and flat DR equal to X. Like in Engage, Arm Shield rewards you for having weapon triangle advantage. In Fey, you're going to get a sizable 15 true damage and 15 flat DR. If you're in a bad matchup, you will only get 5 true damage and flat DR. When facing same color matchups or colorless foes, you land right in the middle. Arm Shield is obviously meant to be paired with Leif's Ring, but it's a decent skill as long as you don't need resistance. Debuff neutralization is always good, and Guard can help stall all those high crit on specials. Because of the weapon triangle effects, Arm Shield is only for colored units, and it's also only for physical damage units. It does not have any movement restrictions, which is nice, but it's going to be a little confusing because colorless units just get locked out entirely. Be careful of that if you want to inherit this skill. Overall, Emblem Leif has most of his skills from Engage, basically he's just missing Vantage. Assuming Leif can survive any hits, he does have Distant Counter, Nullsy Disrupt, and sets up a Bulwark frontline. He will always get Weapon Triangle advantage for at least 2 fights, and has Brave attacks with no follow-up. He has built-in Arch Rival cooldown, so along with Sling and Tempo, he should have a high chance to proc Quadruple Hit at some point. Since Leif will always adapt on the enemy phase, he will also always get Arm Shield's full 15 true damage and flat DR. That's pretty sweet. Now when initiating, Leif has Thunder Spectre and Lightbrand Style for long range attacks. He'll also get adaptive damage, plus you still got those quad attack opportunities. As a unit, Leif seems like another speedy all-arounder and should be decent. As for his Emblem Ring, it definitely requires a little more thinking to be put to good use. It might not be the most universally sought after ring, but if one of your units has a bad matchup against a specific colored foe, then yeah, there could be a use case for this ring. Being able to trigger something like Arch Rival against 2 color types could also be great. Is that enough value though? I'm not sure, at least at the moment. Let me know what you think. For the rest of this video, let's briefly go over the 11 other units on the banner. In red, we have Emblem Corrin, Dual Sigurd/Eldigan, and Chosen Alphonse. Blue has Emblem Sigurd, Rearmed Fallen Tabarn, and Lowen. Green has the new Emblem Leif, Legendary Leon, and Dual Young Edelgard/Dimitri. Last, colorless has Sombron, Fallen Ivy, and Claude. Starting with red, Emblem Corrin's ring deploys the annoying Vert and Icicle Divine Veins. Corrin herself is a speedy sword armor with a full focus on magical tanking with her Briar Magic save skill. She has Distant Counter and tries not to get outsped by having 2 speed roll effects that make her tougher to double. One comes from her special, the other comes from pair up. Corrin's last inheritable skill is Torrential Boost. It's not terrible, but I would say Rise Above kinda just outclasses it now. Next, Dual Sigurd number 2 is a 5-move Sword Cavalier with his Emblem Ult's box-shaped AoE special. This Sigurd has a built-in Frozen effect, and his follow-up has Ignis level damage to finish the AoE's job. Instead of an extra action, Sigurd gives his teammates +1 movement and inflicts Frozen on the enemy to help his team follow up his charge into battle. For fodder skills, Sigurd has Impetus Guard for momentum cooldown with Scowl to prevent special counterattacks. He also is still the only unit with attack and defense versions of Rival Break and Outcry Seize. Not a bad kit if you want to gear up the new Summer Alphonse or Fitness Coach Igdenir. Our third unit is Chosen Alphonse, who is the Book 10 freebie. Alphonse is a bulky sword infantry with great talent stacking for his team. He has Distant Counter with Rejuvenate for Nullsy Disrupt, and he has Brave attacks with Breath type cooldown to try and proc his special. Alphonse also has 4 movement with Kanto for pretty good mobility. For other skills, Warrior's Blow has Tempo with Flat DR for defense stackers, and Pre-Employ has instant cooldown with Deploy status for your higher res units. On to the blue group, Emblem Sigurd's ring gives +1 movement and Kanto, which is always nice to have. Like his earlier dual ult, Emblem Sigurd has 5 movement and also triggers his Override AoE with momentum cooldown. If Sigurd tags 2 foes, he will get an extra action. For other skills, Sigurd has Attack and Defense Excel, which is basically the predecessor to Rival Break. He also has Fatal Smoke 4, which can counteract healing and miracle effects. Next, Rearmed Fallen Tabarn is a flying blue beast with the Arcane Fury Bite weapon for fellow beast flyers. Along with the 4th Gen Arcane perks, this weapon has long range debuffs for -5 stats, buff neutralization, and 10 true damage. Tabarn's unique B skill lets him transform, gives him Kanto, and inflicts sabotage debuffs with Frozen. Tabarn then gets Felix's Lone Wolf extra actions. For other skills, Tabarn also has Attack and Defense Excel. He's still the lone unit with the 5 cooldown Sturdy Lagoon special, and then the Dark Beast Agility Feud C skill. Our third blue unit is Lowen, who is a high defense Lance Cavalier. His Apprentice Lance can give allies +5 stats, debuff neutralization, 10 true damage, and 7 HP healing. Lowen himself will get Slang, instant cooldown, and Kanto. As for fodder, we got a third attack and defense Excel holder. On the rarer side, Lowen has Flame Wall for % DR, and attack and defense Outcry Doe, which is a nice cavalry buff in C skill. We've gone over Emblem Leif already, and if you want the new Arm Shield A skill, then you'll have to pull him. Counter Doe and Thunder Spectre are both super new skills though, so new that these are still on their respective debut banners. Counter Doe is on Harmonic Fitness Violet, Thunder Spectre is on both of the new Alair alts. Joining Leif is Legendary Leon. Coincidentally, Leon has his own weapon triangle advantage versus colorless foes. Leon also has high amounts of instant damage, he can ignore Savior, and if you let him initiate, he applies his turn-ending status after. For support, Leon also inflicts Share Spoils after attacking. He can provide a ton of field debuffs plus in-combat debuffs thanks to his weapon and Unrest B skill. Leon even gives his team Anathema and Creation Pulse for fun cooldown setups. Leon will be able to charge up Comet quickly thanks to the Pulse Up Play C skill. Next, we got dual young Edelgard and Dimitri. These two are a super unique green armored dagger unit. Edelgard can give for team attack and defense debuffs, exposure, DR piercing, and anti-miracle support. Edelgard is still an offensive arm unit, and she uses Lookout Rush for 2 to 3 movement with Kanto. Edelgard's unique style will reduce all first attacks to 1 damage, including her own. She then gets Potent Follow 120%, so the idea is that Edelgard's going for a really big one-hit follow-up. She has instant cooldown to try and proc Armored Flare along with it. After initiating, she also gets her extra action and effect. For more fodder, attack and defense clear is still the only clear A skill, plus an attack and defense, 7 true damage, no guard, and disarm trap. Very unique dagger A skill. In the colorless group, Anima Mythic Sombron is back. He's a tanky armored dragon who sets up a Dark Emblem status on his teammates. Sombron does not use Savior, but if you do not defeat one of his Dark Emblems on the current turn, then Sombron cuts all damage in half, and his % DR specials can trigger any number of times. Since Sombron's going to be sitting around, he also provides 80% DR versus AoE specials and imbue healing. He then has the super long range style that can deal 20 damage in an area and inflict haste to rain. For fodder, Armored Ice Cap is the res-focused 5 cooldown armored special with 40% DR that can activate 2 times. Scowling Fighter is for armored dragons, and Attack and Defense Res Slam is for any dragons. The Slam A skills can give Hardy Bearing if you win a defense check. Next, Fallen Ivy is a high attack and res flying mage. She has a long range support effect to give allies -1 cooldown before every single attack. Very fun. Ivy also can give Creation Pulse with Anathema, plus she has Attack Aerial and Crux Ploy for more debuffing support. For herself, Ivy will have Pass, and she can warp very far to allies who have already acted. She can get Brave attacks and can loot Miracle. With all her crazy cooldown perks, Ivy should be able to trigger the Logic Mage special very quickly. Last up, Claude is a high-res healer whose Valkyrie staff can give an ally Miracle with a full heal. It also provides +5 stats, 7 true damage and flat DR, and pre-impulse cooldown. Claude will have Attack and Res Havoc for debuffing, Silence Ward for cooldown and LC Disrupt, plus you got Ice Lock for annoying ice terrain. He's still the only unit with Fire Flood Charm. This is one of the 40% DR healer specials that also gives Attack and Res Liberate to allies. That'll be it for this month's Emblem banner. Leif himself looks quite fun, although we quite literally get a new speedy infantry with distant counter and a range attacking style basically every month. Still, his arch rival cooldown support is new, and at least for himself, he should always trigger it at max power during enemy phase. Leif's Emblem Ring is a little more limited, at least for my first impressions. Being able to reverse a bad weapon triangle matchup is cool, but the actual weapon triangle effect of granting 20% more attack and lowering enemy attack by 20% hasn't really deterred a lot of units from just blowing each other up in the last half a decade. I suppose if you don't like units such as Boulder, then sure, you can counter her weapon triangle styles. If you're going to be summoning for Emblem Leif, then I wish you good luck. After this, we're coming up on Choose Your Legends 10, and right after is probably Fortune's Weave. The poor orb stash is not looking good. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.